Good evening. This is Aaron here from Samera, down here in Surrey today, at home. Firstly, I hope everybody had a wonderful evening, or a wonderful day rather, and had managed to get some bite to eat before this webinar. My house is quiet at the moment, but I'm sure my children will be turning up soon. So if you hear kids shouting and screaming in the background, I apologise in advance. But tonight I'm going to be talking about how to set up a profitable private practice. Now you might think, what qualifies me to be able to talk about this? I'm not a dentist, okay? Well, hopefully a little bit of information as I go through this webinar, you'll understand perhaps what does qualify me to talk about this, but then at the same time, I encourage any questions you may have, and you can post those through the GoToWebinar panel, okay? So, how to set up a profitable private practice. Let's see if I can move this on. So, what are the aims and objectives of today? Really, key points I want to address this evening. This webinar should maybe last anything between half an hour and an hour. Why setting up is a great option for a dentist. Comparing briefly that with buying a practice. What type of clinic to set up. NHS private, various variations there. Where should you locate your practice? So location is a very important aspect, and we'll need to look at that and address that, and that's really important. How much money do you need? That's always a common question. Me as an accountant, money is a very important aspect to make sure you don't underspend, but also most definitely don't overspend. And also how to get the money as well. Where do you get the sources of money from? And also, since I've been working with dentists for many, many years, the mistakes I've seen of many practices, okay, especially when they're starting or buying, actually. So without further ado, I will crack on. Just going to make sure this is all working all right. So, my experience. Well, as I said, my name's Aaron. Some of you will know me, might have received some emails and might have even been on webinars previously before. But for the last 14 years, I've been working with dentists across the UK through Samera. Samera is my firm of chartered accountants, and I've been lucky enough to work with great dentists all across the UK, from the tip of Cornwall all the way up to Scotland and anywhere and everywhere in between, and quite a few people overseas as well. We work with small practices, large practices, associates looking to buy, set up. We work with large corporates as well. So we've got a lot of experience in that respect. Now, why did I get into dentistry? Well, I'm actually married to a dentist, Smita, who you may have heard of as well. And she's the principal of the Neamtree Dental Clinics and the managing director of that. But enough about her for tonight. It's all about you guys. My experience is a real wide variety of commercial experience. As I said, I'm also director of the Neamtree Dental Group, which has clinics in Wandsworth, Esher, Fleet Street, various places dotted around London. And I suppose my uniqueness as an accountant is I have a real hands-on experience in helping dentists grow their businesses. I've seen lots of practices make mistakes, but I've also seen lots of practices grow and do that. Prior to entering the world of working with dentists and starting up my own firm, I'm a trained chartered accountant when I trained with PricewaterhouseCoopers in London, which seemed like a hell of a long time ago. And I'm an vice president of Bank of America. So in the banking sector, I was quite young at the time, but I managed to make VP. So that seems like another lifetime ago. So who are you? Who are you? And well, I suppose the question I'm trying to ask is, where are you coming from? What do you want to achieve? And I think the person who's going to make a success of owning their own practice is someone who really believes in themselves, okay, and manages to feel that they can achieve this, because setting up a practice is actually not that easy, but it's possible and very achievable for probably all of you listening to this webinar and watching this webinar tonight. Now, it's your business, okay, and in order to achieve the greatness of owning your own business and your own practice, you need to invest in yourself, you need to believe in yourself, and you need to sell yourself. And I can't underestimate or really stress how important this is, that setting up a business or setting up a clinic or running a clinic or even buying a clinic it's all on your shoulders, okay? So if you can make the efforts and make it work, it will come, okay? It might not work the first time around, it might not work the second time around. Mistakes will arise, but you've got to have the belief, and belief is a really large part of setting up your clinic. But I'm not going to go into the psychology much today, but psychology is a very important aspect of being able to own your own clinic. I'm going to talk a bit more about the tactical and the operational aspects you need to think about, as I highlighted earlier, in setting up your own clinic. So, one thing to highlight though is patients are interested in you and your services, okay? As a dentist, I think the dentist is probably visited more often than anyone else, okay? And most patients who come to you either want to know what's wrong or how they can improve, okay? Whether what's wrong with their tooth, what's wrong with why have they got pain, or how they can improve their oral health as well. But moving away from that side of things, I really want to focus on why setting up is a great option and why so many on this webinar tonight. I think we've got just over 90 odd people on this webinar tonight. So there's obviously a lot of interest dotted around the UK and probably and beyond. But why is setting up a great option? Well, as we probably all know, and if you're not aware of this, there are practices for sale at the moment. There's a real limited availability of practices for sale, particularly in the urban centres of London, Manchester, Birmingham, dotted around the country. So there aren't many practices to buy, and if you're going to buy, valuations have no doubt gone up over the last few years. Okay, and after this webinar, you still may decide, you know what, I still want to buy a practice, and by all means, it can be a very good and profitable option for you if you've got the resources, if you've got the money, and if you've got the know-how of what you need to do. And at the same time, it's a very, I suppose, a very good option to buy if you're getting it at the right price for the right practice. But why setting up is a great option? Well, as I said, limited availability for practices. So if you can't find one to buy and you can't afford it, probably maybe because a corporate's trying to buy it or someone else with more money is trying to buy it, what are your options? Well, one option is to stay as an associate, but I know a lot of associate dentists out there who want to break free and own their own practice. So the only other option is then to set up your own type of clinic. And there's a scope to start. The opportunity with a startup gives you a scope to start with a clean slate. What does that mean? Effectively, you might have this wonderful idea and wonderful view of what type of clinic you want to create, how it looks, how it feels, what type of patients you want to offer services to, what type of dentistry. You have a clean slate. Setting up a clinic usually also requires lower capital, so not so much money. Goodwill valuations are high and a lot of money is required, okay, to buy a practice usually, whereas with a startup, a lower capital amount is usually required. Not always the case, but usually it all depends on how and where and what you set up. You're not paying for goodwill, so I suppose the counter argument to that is that you've got no patience, but if you're smart with your marketing, smart with your location choice, smart with doing it right first time, that shouldn't hopefully not be a problem. And it also gives you the opportunity to choose your location and your team. And don't underestimate how important both of those points are. Location is absolutely critical, and getting the right team is absolutely critical. And quite often or not, you might get both wrong, okay? If you get your location wrong, then you've really got a problem, okay? If you get your team wrong, usually you can change it quite easily. So it's not too big an issue, hopefully. You'll realise quite early on if you need to change your team. And I suppose one of the other benefits of setting up is you have no baggage. So no baggage of problem patients and also no problem of problem team members as well. So setting up is a great option, most definitely. And I think something that associate dentists who want to have their own clinic should seriously consider. So let's move on. But what type of clinic should you set up? There's so many options available and sizes, but before you do that, my suggestion would be to understand your demographics. So who are your patients? Okay, what type of patients do you want? Do you want people who are elderly, young? Excuse me, let this phone turn off. Do you want patients who are working patients? Are they the elderly who are retired? Who are your patients? Where do they live? Work and play. Where do they eat? What do they do? How old are they? Do they have family? All of these things need to be considered. Okay, so if you understand the demographic of your patient base, that will help you significantly in terms of thinking, okay, what type of clinic am I going to set up? So knowing the type of customer you want to serve or type of patient you want to serve, and remember that you are serving them, you're providing a service to them, will help you understand the type of clinic you should really operate. So then the options available, well, I've just listed key points really down here. NHS or private? Well, in England, it's actually very difficult now to set up an NHS clinic. You need a contract. In Scotland, it's still possible to do that, I believe. So the options are being able to set up an NHS clinic are virtually nil unless you can win a contract, and those are few and far between. So the only other option is private. Generalist or specialist? Well, you may be a specialist. So should you just set up a specialist clinic? Maybe. Okay, there's no right answer here. But general, what the benefits of a general clinic are, you can be that general dentist and then you can bring in specialist services when you need. Should you be at the high end, middle or low end? Again, that goes back to the demographics. Who do you want to serve? Do you want to be serving implants to the high end of the market and charging 3-4 grand per implant? Do you want to be operating in the middle classes where people are willing to pay maybe 1.5-2 grand for an implant, or is it cheapest chip type of implants where people want to pay £500 or £600 for? That's your decision ultimately, okay? But there's a market available in each of those markets, okay? But you have to see, are they going to be profitable? Are they going to work for you? So you also have to then think, what skills do I have? Okay, do I have the pre-required skills to offer implants? If you don't, well, doesn't necessarily mean you don't do that. You just need to hire the right people in your team or bring the right people in your team to service patients. Cosmetic or generalist? I guess that's another option. Do you want to open up a cosmetic clinic, or is it a general health related clinic where you might offer cosmetics? In bottom line is, what do you want to offer? I suppose, what do you want to offer? Not what you need to listen to the market for sure, listen to what clients and customers want or what patients want, but at the same time, remember, it's your business. You have to design the business that you want to do and where you want to work. So then I'm speeding through these because I know I've got a lot to say and I want to get the points across tonight. I suppose the third area then is, where should you locate your practice? Well, that goes back to, what do you want to offer really? Who are your patients? Where do they hang out? Okay. I suppose an easy way to do this is just do a little timeline of what our history, or my wife Smita's history of owning clinics. And back in 2004, we hadn't got any knowledge or very little knowledge about dentistry. So we wanted to open up our first dental clinic. Smita was, I suppose, that was 2004. She was about 6 or 7 years out of dental school. And I just quit my job in the city, wanting to do something different. So lo and behold, we thought, right, let's open up a private dental clinic. Against everyone's better judgment, they said, no, that's nuts. Why are you doing that? But we thought, right, we're going to do it. We're going to take the bull by the horns, and we did. So we found this spot, this rather ugly-looking frontage back in 2004, and it was a former doctor's surgery. So we saw it, and we thought, you know what? There's an opportunity here. Let's give it a go. So we signed the lease. Smita signed the lease, and the objective was that she was going to be the main breadwinner, earning dentist in that practice. Lo and behold, before we knew, once she'd signed the lease, she was pregnant with our first child. So it was an interesting first year where suddenly, where she was going to be the main earner, we had to redesign the business to say, right, we've got to have good associates in to help us build the business while she's away having our first child. So this was what it looked like when we got the premises. So it was pretty horrible, and this is what we turned it into. It was, and we transformed it. We got design teams in, we got some of the great equipment in, we got an AJ chair in, and we branded it called the Neem Tree, and that was how we started it off, and that built and built. So that was the first site, and this was located, or this is still located, in Wandsworth Town in southwest London. Now, before my children come in on here, I can hear them coming in. I'm just going to add that our demographic for that marketplace was 30-somethings. Okay, so late 20s to mid 30s people wanting dentistry, wanting convenience, had the money, but usually time short. So our clinic was designed to operate for them. Early starts in the morning, late evenings, but private, offering good quality services where people will be willing to pay for those services. And that was the first Aintree clinic in Wandsworth. A couple of years later, after baby one was out and 2 years old, we decided, right, patients were saying, well, why don't you open up another clinic in Canary Wharf? Because patients were coming to the Wandsworth clinic saying, well, we work in Canary Wharf, there's nothing like this there. So we did some research, walked around the area, hunted down agents, talked and hassled and found lots and lots of people until we managed to get a space. And this is actually what it looked like before we took over. And this was a car park. It was in a car park, and Canary Wharf were transforming it. And you may have seen some pictures, some of you. It was transformed into this, the Aintree, quite a slick looking practice with frontage, and that was in Churchill Mall in Canary Wharf. Now again, demographic wise, this was aimed at city workers. So again, 30 to something people, time short, money not necessarily not an issue, but time short particularly, and money okay, so they could afford to pay for the services that we wanted. This started in 2006. It built and grew, and it grew to a very good level. We had busy specialists there, busy dentists there, busy orthodontists there. We had a full range of services like we did in the Wandsworth clinic, and that grew to a nice level. Back in 2013, we actually sold it to Bupa. They decided they wanted to buy it, so we had a discussion with them and we moved that one on. Then 2010, another area, again another demographic. This is in Esher. This is where one of our offices of clinics is, and this is where my headquarters are, if my offices are as well, which are on the upper floors. And this is what the building looked like. It was an old 1600 building, something century building, all falling apart. Okay, and it didn't look particularly attractive. And that was the back of it down there as well, with a big car park at the back. But we saw we could create something. Now, the previous two clinics were all location driven, in terms of we couldn't afford, or the freeholds weren't available. Okay, the freeholds weren't available. But in this instance, we saw, well, the freehold was available here. So we thought, right, let's see if we can buy it, which we fortunately did. So the learning point here is that location is the most important point, really. Freehold or leasehold is secondary. Getting the right location is really important to help you grow that business. So this is what it looked like beforehand. And then we transformed it into something looking like this. This was actually the first day of trading back in 2010. And it was all grey. Now we've changed it completely again, and I haven't got an up-to-date picture here, but it's all kind of green and red now. So again, quite a funky, interesting clinic. Now the demographic of Esher is again very different to Wandsworth and to Canary Wharf. Esher's much more Surrey, wealthy Surrey belt, kind of, they say the kind of part of the Beverly Hills of London. I'm not so sure about that, but it right opposite this is Waitrose, and Waitrose, by being opposite Waitrose, it feeds a lot of patients to our clinic. Very helpful indeed. So that was another clinic. So when you're looking for a location, there are so many permutations and combinations and opportunities around, some suitable, some not. One of the things you have to think about, do you want a ground floor high street visibility, or do you want upper floors? We've taken and decided we want ground floor, we want visibility. If people can see it, they will come. If they can't see it, they're unlikely to come. You might have the best website and the best optimized pay-per-click system in the world, but if people can't see it physically, they're unlikely to come unless you were lucky online. And spending all that money online can be quite costly, whereas rent, yes, it can be costly, but getting the right site can be your marketing budget effectively, i.e. not having to do so much marketing. In addition, when you're getting premises, you need to make sure you have D1 planning. D1 is a planning use for medical, dental, that type of thing. Quite often, a lot of premises don't have that, and then you'll need to get change of use and get approval from a landlord. Increasingly, there are obviously a lot of new builds in cities, or sometimes they might have a ground floor spot that you could get in there, or conversion. And remember, if you're converting a building into a dental clinic, sometimes it's actually quite difficult. There are a lot of building control regulations you need to consider. And I just mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I'll reiterate again: freehold or leasehold. Freehold is, whilst advantageous, and as the property market seems to be just going stronger and stronger, it's not necessarily the best thing. My view is get the right location. If you get the right location, people will come, and ultimately you're in the business of dentistry as opposed to property. But if you can get a freehold as part of it and it's a fantastic location, even better. But quite often or not, freeholds are very rarely available in the locations you want. Not always the case, but quite rarely. So get the location right, and then much of the rest will fall into place. So, how much money do you need? Yes, money unfortunately has to play a part in it, and I suppose as the accountant I can be the bearer of doom and gloom, but money is an important aspect to get this right. You don't want to overspend, which I've seen, and you don't want to underspend. But how much do you need? Well, I suppose it's the standard answer. It depends. Depends on the location. It depends on the quality of clinic look. Depends on what type of chair you're going to buy. Is it going to be a top-end ADEC or Sirona, or is it going to be a cheap as chips, something imported from China? Okay, strongly recommend not doing that, hiring or buying stuff from cheapest chip China. They invariably turn out to be much more costly to manage because you're losing patients and money because they keep breaking down. You need to think about what's the build requirements. Are there lots of walls that need to go up? Do you need to be re-plumbed? Do you need to put new electrics in, air conditioning? All these types of things, they all add and they all cost money. And the fabric of the building you have to look at as well, in terms of, does it need restructuring or structural steels to go in, and painting and presenting and all these types of things. Okay, so that's an important aspect, and that all has to be figured out, whether it's freehold or leasehold, as I said earlier. And if it's a leasehold, you have to look at what are your responsibilities as the leaseholder as well. In addition, it has to comply with CQC, and there's plenty of requirements there. And then I suppose it means, after all those factors have been considered, how much have you saved, and how much do you need? Okay, so this is just a very kind of loose range of figures, but a typical range could be anything between 100 and 250 rand, depending on the type and size of practice. This excludes freeholds. It definitely excludes freeholds unless you're very in an area where the freeholds are very cheap. But this includes things like all the sterilisation and chairs and stuff, perhaps for 1 to 2 chair type of clinic. But you'll need the money, okay? And if you're raising money from a bank, they will always look at your earnings history as an associate, seeing how much you've earned, and are you particularly going to be able to repay the mortgage or repay the loan. They'll also look at your current financial setup. Are you a saver or spender? Do you drive lots of Porsche cars and spend your money on fancy holidays, or have you got a nice savings out there and committed to using those savings to set up your own clinic? And are you a responsible borrower already with a mortgage? And they'll want to know, do you have a mortgage, personal mortgage, or maybe another buy-to-let property or something? And do they see you paying those off comfortably each month? So banks will always look at that. Lenders will always look at those types of things, which are very important for you to get the money. But then, how do you get the money? Well, you can get money, but you want to get money at the best rates. I suppose that's the really important thing, and on the best terms for you, because there's lots of people who will lend you money, but ultimately you want to get the best deal for yourself. So how to get the money? Well, if you're doing a startup, invariably you'll always need a business plan, and that has to be thought through and planned all right. You'll also need financial forecasts for the clinic, and whilst you can do them yourselves, honestly, your best bet is to get someone who's done these countless times for dentists and dental clinics, many a time. Get in touch if you need that. We do that a lot. We do a lot each year for clients. At the same time, you might have some savings, and it'd be nice to. The bank will invariably ask you to put some of your money into it. You could ask family; they might have some money that you might want to invest in your business, and then ultimately back to banks and asset financing companies. And banks will typically lend for the build cost or buying a freehold or something. Asset financer companies are people like who lend you money over a 5-year term for a leasing like a chair. That can be tax efficient for you, but that has to be looked at for each and every case. So how to get the money? Well, you can do it yourself and go to the banks, but I can guarantee you'll usually get the worst deal. Okay, not always the case, but quite often you'll get the worst deal. So because you don't have the time to seek the best deals out, or you can get a broker involved. And we're in the brokerage business. We do increasingly do a lot of financing for dentists starting up, or even dentists refinancing for their practices. So we can help you usually get the best deals because you know what people are offering, which banks are offering which deals. And quite often or not, you may have been with one bank for many years, but another bank are really targeting dentists, and sometimes we can get you quite a considerable saving as well. So then mistakes I've seen. Well, I've seen plenty of mistakes, I suppose, over the years. Even mistakes we made in our own clinics. We've made plenty of mistakes, okay, from team issues to financial issues. But I suppose things that have come to my mind are wrong location. I suppose this is critical. I've seen people open up a wonderful looking clinic with wonderful kit and wonderful equipment and a wonderful team, but no patients. Why? Because it's completely the wrong location. No one can see it. It's up the 3rd floor or down in the basement. And whilst you might have spent hundreds of thousands of pounds to create this beautiful clinic, no one can see it, which is tantamount to literally throwing money down the toilet, really. Okay, so wrong location. You want visibility. You want people to see it, and that's why we've always thought ground floor, visible, shop front type of situation is by far the best option. Second mistake I've seen is spending too much money. People get carried away. They want the latest chair. They want the latest microscope. They want the latest CEREC machine. They want the latest piece of kit. Okay, and when you're buying or setting up a clinic, that's the time when, in all honesty, you're going to spend a lot of money. And this is kind of rub your hands day for the dental engineering companies out there. No disrespect to anyone out there, but they'll try and sell you as much as possible. Quite often or not, you won't need it. I remember on our first clinic in Wandsworth, we were naive. We bought everything. Okay. Second clinic, we realised we didn't need half of it, so we didn't buy half of it. And then our third clinic, we did it. We cut even less what we needed. So you just got to be a much shrewder person in terms of knowing what you actually need, and that's where advice from people like ourselves can help you incredibly. Personal outgoings are too high, and this is common amongst dentists. Associate dentists, you might be earning quite a nice amount of money, but then suddenly you buy a fancy car or go on for exotic holidays. Nothing wrong in doing that, but quite often I see, and private school fees, all these type of things, suddenly your personal outgoings are too high, which when you're running your startup business, you're draining cash out of your business very quickly, and you're on a very quick spiral downwards if you're not generating the income in the business. So you need to have a very tight rein on your personal outgoings, so your commitment levels are relatively not low, but are well managed. Okay, because I imagine in the first 6 months you'll be building up the practice, so you want to make sure that you manage your personal outgoings effectively. Another issue I've seen is where people have got into a financial pickle, mainly because they have maybe chosen the wrong locations or spent too much money, or their personal outgoings are too high. So what they then do is start doing dentistry they should not be doing, really. Perhaps they're not qualified enough to do certain treatments, and that then creates even further problems and leading to GDC issues, which is just a tantamount to further problems down the line. Another mistake I've seen is people cutting corners. Branding and marketing. The brand and marketing are absolutely critical to your business. People want to see it. People want to be part of it. If you're going to get the right type of clients for your type of customer, for your type of practice, it needs to look slick. It needs to look good. It needs to feel that people want to come to your clinic. Okay. Another issue is the wrong offering to the wrong demographic. You don't want to set up a fancy, wonderful looking, expensive or pricey serviced clinic in the wrong location, servicing a very NHS kind of orientated, needing demographic. So I've seen that where people have set up the most beautiful clinics, but in the wrong location. Why? Because they thought the rent was cheap and it would work. No one came. No one wanted private dental services. They wanted cheap NHS dental services. Okay, in that particular situation. Another mistakes I've seen is poor leadership and team management. Ultimately, this practice is only going to work by not by you owning it. It's going to be a team effort. It's a team effort. Team have to work together, and it's down to you as the leader, if it's your clinic, to manage, grow, and develop the team and motivate the team to help you ensure that you grow the business. So then back to, I suppose, the starting point of what we said right at the outset, how to create that profitable startup practice. Well, in my opinion, and I've seen it over many years, I think success does come from a clearly articulated vision. So you have to be really crystal clear about what you want to achieve, what type of clinic, where is it going to be, what type of patient, who's it for? Okay, so clearly articulate your vision, so then your team and your patients can understand what you're trying to achieve. And then I think really it also comes from encouraging team effort. So your leadership style has to encourage input from all team members. Okay, every person has to be able to give their input into the team. And as I said earlier, you might not get the right team earlier, on the right people on the right bus, because you're going to be driving that bus forward, and you want to make sure you've got the right people on that bus who are going to drive the bus forward for you. Well, you're going to drive the bus forward, and they're going to help you and be the right passengers on there, metaphorically. So really important. Then success then comes from consistency of offering. So you need to be consistent with your offering, consistent with your message, consistent with your delivery to patients. That goes without saying. Managing the money, making sure that you are making some money. Okay, making sure you have good systems in place to record the takings, to do the bookkeeping, making sure that you do that. That's absolutely critical. And then one point which I think is really fundamental is the marketing, the effectiveness of your marketing. Earlier I mentioned you should have your location could be part of your marketing budget, because if you get it in the wrong location, you're going to have to spend a lot more money on marketing, whereas if you get it in the right location, your marketing budget might slim down significantly. So you need to think, okay, how am I measuring the effectiveness of my marketing? You just don't spend money willy-nilly. Spend it on the things that are actually getting your results. And I think a really strong and important point is people who I've seen who are most successful in their clinics and startups and building and growing are the ones who have a passion to deliver a great service to their patients. Okay, they make the efforts, they go beyond the norm, they help people to deliver a great service to their patients. And I think if you've got the passion to do that, then it will grow and the business will grow. Your passion might come and go, and that's the nature of business, and you'll have highs and lows. Okay, but it's about being able to ride those highs and lows in that respect. Okay. I'm just going to answer a question that's been posted to me. How about identifying key KPIs? Are there a key list of those to be measured? Is there a yardstick against best practice? Well, good question. It depends on location, I suppose. So if you're starting up a clinic, one of the key metrics I would look at is how many new patients you're getting through the door. I would be wanting to get within a few months, if it's a private startup squat clinic, maybe above 20 new patients a month, okay, and building on that. It can vary from location to location and rent to rent that you're paying, but if you're getting above 20 to 30, then you've got some good momentum, okay, and you need to build on that. That's important KPI. I suppose another KPI to look at is ultimately what revenue you're generating in your practice, and that can vary so greatly depending on the type of treatments that you're doing. So I can't really give a best practice there. But I suppose you'd be looking for, if you're working there in your own clinic, you'd be looking for, I suppose, a net profit margin, ultimately maybe about 25-30%, okay, once you've got some momentum behind it. So I hope that kind of helps, but every situation does differ and every clinic does differ. And whilst there's lots of synergies amongst every dentist, there's things that are parallels that you can draw between dental practices. They do vary greatly from location to location and type of dentistry being done. So success does come from what I've seen: a clear vision, a leader who's driving the team forward positively, real consistency of offering with great customer care, managing the money, so making sure that your money is managed carefully. But to grow your business, you'll need to market, so you will need to spend money as well. So measuring the effectiveness of your marketing, that's really important. And then ultimately showing the passion, because if you're passionate about your business, your team will follow suit, and that's really important as well. And even sometimes you'll get patients or customers or clients or however you want to call them who aren't right for your practice. That doesn't matter, okay? You can't please everybody, okay? But you can try your best to deliver the care and patience to patients who do value your service and value your team's efforts and services. Okay, so we've been going about 40 odd minutes. Yeah, about 40 minutes. Okay, so just coming up to wrapping up this this thing. Got another question that's come up. One question I had: have I had experience of hygienists or therapists starting their own practices? Limited experience. I know of a couple of people who've done it. I'm not sure how they're doing. It's still a very, I suppose, dare I say, it's a small market of people doing it. In order to, as I said earlier, to raise, you need the money to raise it, and banks are less, actually, I suppose, less inclined to lend money to therapists or hygienists to start their own clinics. But going forward, as part of the multidisciplinary team, if a hygienist or therapist has got some capital behind them, nothing stopping them doing it, and they can employ the dentists, specialists, and obviously then do the hygiene as well. So there's definitely an opportunity there in that respect. And then another question we've got here: how easy is it to bring on associates in a squat practice with no regular patient base? Well, that goes back to your vision, okay? If you're going to articulate your vision clearly, you'll get the right type of associates on board. You need to get people to buy into who you are, what you're trying to achieve, and they'll come and follow you, okay? If your offering or your vision is not clear, they'll think, well, I can't be bothered, I'm not going to bother coming. But if you've got a clear vision, it's articulated, and you show your passion to them, they've got every opportunity to be part of that and grow. Okay, so don't underestimate the power of passion and the power of a clearly articulated vision. A question I've had, another one, is how many surgery rooms do you recommend? Good question. I would, if you're on a limited budget, I'd start off with kitting out one room only. Okay, you don't want to kit out multiple rooms. If you've got other rooms available, great, but don't spend all that money on the other rooms. Just do one room, get it set up working, all right? Build that room up, get the momentum, get the patients in through that room, build it up to a point when suddenly you think, you know what, I need another room for someone else to work in. One of the mistakes we made when we opened up our Wandsworth clinic naively is that we kitted out both rooms. But the first room got busy, but the second room was pretty quiet for quite a long time. So don't tie up the money in equipment that you don't need. So just get one room, most definitely kitted out. And when you do the building work, get something called first fix. What that means is all the plumbing is done for the second or third rooms, but it's just a matter of doing some work at a weekend of the engineers coming in and fitting it all in one weekend and sorting it out. And that's what we've done for subsequent sites that we've done. Okay. So any other questions before I wrap up this evening's webinar? I will move on briefly to the next slide. So lastly, okay, some of you may be aware, we run, myself and Samita, with a few other interested parties, run our Setting Up in Practice bootcamp. It is aimed at dentists wanting to set up or buy a practice. We talk about the pros and cons of buying versus setting up. We talk about the legal aspects. We have lawyers come along. We talk about the more financial issues in detail. We talk about the business problems we face. We talk about the equipment. We have equipment people there talking about the choice of from between handpieces to autoclaves to chairs to use. We talk about designing the surgery. We talk about virtually everything. Okay. We talk about raising the finance, which is an important aspect, whether you're buying or setting up. So we cover literally everything. We've been doing it for the last, I think, 7 years. We did it at Mercedes-Benz World last year, which was fantastic. And we're doing it again at Mercedes-Benz World down in Weybridge, Surrey. And it's, we're actually very, very booked already, but we're getting more space. We've still got space, and they've promised me at Mercedes-Benz World they'll give us more room if we need it. So all the details are on our settingupinpracticebootcamp.com website. And I have an offer for anyone on this webinar tonight for 24 hours only. We have an offer of the ticket price of $499 plus VAT. An email will come to you shortly after this webinar with details of how to get that. It's not available on the website. It's only people who attended this webinar who stayed to the end to get the details. The normal price currently is $599, and on the door price will be $999 plus VAT. So you save £100 if you book within the 24 hours. So watch out for that. If you want to come, book that there. And then lastly, I suppose the last point I really want, just a point from my own experience, setting up a clinic is not for everyone, but for those that want their own, dream practice, it is an achievable goal. It's hard work. There's no doubt about it, but it's ultimately down to you to make it happen. I've met lots of dentists over the years, and a lot of them talk about having a clinic. A lot of them talking about buying a clinic or setting up a clinic, but it never happens. Okay, it never happens. Why doesn't it happen? I suppose the element of fear gets involved, and they don't take the action. And before they know it, 5-10 years down the line, they think, oh, it's too late, and they're scared, and they think, oh, it's too late to start doing it at 40, or it's too late to do it at 50. Ultimately, it only happens if you take action. That's down to you. It can happen, and I've worked with lots and lots of people who've gone through the roller coaster, and it is a roller coaster of setting up a clinic, but it's also at the same time, I suppose, a very, very good opportunity out there. Okay, so make it happen. Down to you. But before I wrap up, I've got suddenly a whole raft of questions, so I'm going to answer these questions one by one. How realistic is it for a dentist post-VT to set up their clinic? I'm a year 4 student at the moment. So my view to someone like that who's still a student, there's no rush. Wait a bit, get some experience, work in a practice, see what you like, see what you don't like, and then go into owning or setting up a practice. I think you've got a long career ahead of you before you jump in with 2 feet. Get some experience behind you. One quick question is, when setting up a clinic, when does the CQC need to be involved? The CQC need to be informed whilst you're, I think, about 8 weeks, I think from memory, in advance of opening up. So they'll do an interview, they'll check you out, they'll come and see you, make sure everything's all right. And you can't actually trade until the CQC have approved you. So get that paperwork in early. Question is it better to open up the practice as a partnership or the limited company? It depends. It depends. I'm not going to go into it now. I think limited companies have their advantages. There could be some tax benefits there. But if you're in a partnership, you might have 2 people. So it depends, and there's no right answer there, to be honest with you. So I don't want to give a wrong answer. Then question is, one of the questions, how did you initially get patients to physically come through the door and register? Good question. We had on our very first clinic, I remember we got lots of freebies from people like Colgate and others, and we then started to hand those out to people. On the first day, we held a kind of an open day with balloons and a celebration, a little party, and lots of bubbles and stuff, and got people through. We also then asked people to We did a flyer drop in the area, and that got people through. And we held something called our first toothbrushing class on the first day, and it's aimed at children really. And children came along. We did a kind of outdoor toothbrushing lesson where Smita did a toothbrushing lesson with some of the other associates, and just got community spirit. And I think that's a really important aspect when you're building a clinic. Get into the community, get people to know you. That helps a hell of a lot, okay? Because you're part of the community. Another question is it best to lease equipment rather than buy outright? Quite possibly, because remember, if you're buying outright, you're tying up cash of your own. If you lease it, you're just paying a monthly fee. There might be a tax, there might be a charge, an interest charge associated with it, but it will save you. It'll save you some money. It'll save you some tax as well. So, if I was doing it, honestly, I'd probably lease it. Okay, some of it you still need to use some money. Another question is: do you think minimum turnover is around 300k long term for a squat to be sustainable? No, I think for depending who's working in there and if you're working in there, but depends if it's a one share. But I think lower than that. I think a turnover maybe between 200 and 250 is sustainable if you're working in there, and you can still get a decent profit. And another question was: have you ever thought of a percentage ownership with a high grossing associate? Yeah, we have, and that's something to consider. And you could get an associate to come in and take a stake. Certainly a possibility. Another question: how easy is it to get D1? Are landlords usually willing to wait for you to get D1 approval before accepting your offer? Yes, they are, quite often or not. It's important to show the landlord what you're trying to achieve. That's why you want to get a business plan together, your financial forecast. Quite often or not, want to see your history in terms of how much money you were making previously. A dentist is actually a good tenant on the whole. It's better than someone like a hairdresser. So they might go down that route and say, yeah, apply for D1, and if you get D1, they'll accept you taking it over. So always ask the question. Don't be afraid to ask that type of thing. Okay. Right, then last couple of questions. We're almost there. Just wondering regarding setting up practice within January present employee. If you breach associate agreement and this is proven to be so, would this result in a financial budget, or would it possibly be closed down? Right. Okay. So, in my understanding, is this question results to having a restraint of trade point. Depends what the restraint of trade is, how far that area is. If it's stopping you do your dentistry within a reasonable place of where you're living, it won't result in a financial penalty. It just might be that it's not a fair zone. So what I'm saying is, honestly, get a lawyer to look at your associate agreement, check if it's reasonable or not. In a city like London, if someone's saying that you're working in one clinic, you can't work within 3 miles of that clinic, the reality is that's just hogwash. Any court will throw that out. You can't be restricted from trading as a dentist, okay? If it's like 100 meters away, then fair enough. But if it's a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, that's quite reasonable. That's too far. Last question I've got, interesting question. 100% NHS practice, is it worth to buy? Well, who has a crystal ball? I don't have a crystal ball. My gut feeling is that buying an NHS clinic is increasingly riskier. I would be cautious of buying it. I think there are still some good NHS mixed practices out there. The danger of NHS, no one knows what's going to happen with the contract, time limited. Gut feel is that they'll want more activity with probably less money. That's why setting up and not being necessarily part of the NHS is the best thing. However, you can still get good NHS clinics, and if you've got a good patient base there, they'll still be able to convert to private as well. That has to be considered as well. On that note, more questions. I can't believe it. Let's keep coming. Okay. Have you seen successful squat practice within NHS healthcare centres? I have, actually. Okay. But again, it goes back to location in the healthcare centres. I've seen clinics where the private dental bit was upstairs, so no one ever saw it, and it failed. Where I've seen clinics where they're downstairs and they've worked really, really well. Okay, so visibility in the actual physical building makes a huge difference. Is there a last question or a couple of? Is there a maximum population to dentist ratio you look at to avoid competition? There are some numbers around that. To be honest with you, I don't have it to hand here. Worth popping me an email, and I may be able to dig something out for you in that respect. And I suppose, going back to the NHS practice, 100% NHS. Is it worth buying Scotland? Possibly. It's quite interesting you say that, because I've got clients looking who are buying in NHS practice in Scotland. Some corporates are trying to buy outside of England, so in Northern Ireland and Scotland. There's lots of activity going on there, so it's a worthy consideration. Okay, definitely worthy consideration. Actually, I do actually have someone looking to sell their NHS clinic in Scotland. So if you're interested, you know where we are. I guess that's the wrap up of questions. I think we had 26 questions, and I've managed to answer them in, I suppose, about 10 minutes. So hopefully everybody got a good idea of the key aspects of setting up. It's a very brief taste of what it's all about. If you want to know more, you know where we are. You'll get a link to this email shortly, with the offer for the bootcamp event as well. So if you want to know more and really get your teeth into it and make it happen for yourselves, book yourself on. On that note, I will say farewell, good night, and have a lovely evening, and hope to see you all soon. Take care. Good night.